Hey everybody, Leah Klatt here with the Christian Post, and I'm so honored today to be joined by actress Patricia Heaton. We're talking about her brand new film, The Ritual, based on a true story. This movie is so good. Oh
Oh, I'm
my
glad
God.
you like it.
I was both frightened and also inspired, which I didn't realize was possible for a horror movie.
Yeah, well, I think because this is a was a small budget movie and it's a real story and it's more gritty. It's not about spinning heads and vomiting the pea soup and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's got some elements of that, but I think it's about the reality of this situation, which is it was a real situation in I think it was Iowa. I think I said it wrong before. I think it's Iowa. Um, and um, and so I think in some ways it can have more of an impact because it's sort of a smaller, grittier movie. You can relate to it a little bit more.
What was it like stepping into the role of Mother Superior, who's really tasked with maintaining order when everything is just going haywire? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I just loved her character immediately because I feel like Hollywood usually portrays a caricature of religious orders, but especially of nuns. And it's always kind of a silly, goofy kind of portrayal. And my sister is a Dominican nun, and in real life, and it's a teaching order, and they're one of the fastest growing orders in the country, and they're very accomplished women, and they all have masters and doctorates in their fields, and they come from incredibly diverse backgrounds. And so it was really thrilling when I read the script to see the strength that our writer gave to Mother Superior. I love the fact that she was from a Polish background, which doesn't necessarily play into the events, but it just gives me, as an actor, something more to sink my teeth into, because you figured around that time, it was difficult in Poland, and that she's coming, she's probably a refugee from that country. So, what has she been through in her life, and how does she, what evil has she seen? And then seeing this coming into her convent, uh, I totally related to her objections and to her wanting to protect her sisters. Um, you get the sense she has some beautiful lines of, all her life she's been having to take orders from men whose piety doesn't compare to the sisters that she works with, the piety and humility of the sisters she works with. And yet they're obedient, right? They are an obedient um, order. And the church runs on a particular hierarchy. And so I loved that about her, and that she is resistant to this whole idea and doesn't want to put up with it. And she herself ends up coming face to face with the demon. So I loved that.
What's so crazy to me is this is based on a true story. I mean, this is so well documented. It did happen in the
Yes.
1920s. When you were researching for this role, researching this case, how did your own understanding of the spiritual realm deepen?
Well, what was interesting is I was talking to one of my sisters who lives in Arkansas, and I was telling her, hey, I'm doing this movie, and it's about this actual exorcism case from the 20s in Iowa. And she said, was the exorcist's name Father Theophilus? And I was like, yes. How would you know that? And she says, because I have two copies of the book he wrote about it. I'm looking at them right now. They're on my bookshelf. And I
Wow.
was like, I know, I got chills. And I said, well, I guess you're supposed to send me one. Um, and she did. And so it was really great to just read about the actual events. And of course, it's different when this is in the 20s. He's probably writing about it in the 30s. Um, and, there's sort of almost a matter of factness
Mhm.
about these things, which, you know, when the when the world does stories about exorcisms, when Hollywood does stories about exorcisms, they're they're the most cinematic and dramatic versions.
Mhm.
But um, when you read about cases and you hear the priests or the psychiatrists talk about it, they're kind of almost boring because the devil is boring and
Mhm.
has nothing really new and is just wants to mess with people because Satan has already lost, right? So this is just, him being bothersome to people. And obviously there's more serious cases, but and a lot of them come from sexual abuse also. So that's really serious stuff. But and I have Father Dan Rehill is a friend of mine who's an exorcist in Nashville and in sort of surrounding counties. So it's I knew a lot about it already. Um and I just loved being a part of it and sort of delving into it in a deeper way. But I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, it's a movie. So you're there and you're waiting for the lighting to happen. And then you do one take and something falls off the wall that wasn't supposed to, and you do it again. And so in the making of it, it's very technical. You still have to present and fully commit to the reality of the story. So it's an interesting combination of technical work and then committing fully emotionally to the reality of it.
It's so interesting. I was interviewing the guys who made the Christian horror movie Nefarious a couple of years ago, and they shared all this spiritual warfare that happened on set while making the movie. Did you guys
Mm.
experience any of that or demonic seeming activity while making this movie?
I personally did not. I mean, um, so I can't speak for Al or for anybody else that was working on it. I mean, my friend Patrick Fabian played the bishop, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. And so we were just chatting it up in between takes, what have you been doing? How's your wife? How's your kids? What's going on? So I personally did not have that experience.
Well, that's good. I was watching, I was like,
Yeah.
I bet Satan doesn't want this movie made.
Well, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But no, it was great. And Al Pacino is such a wonderful actor, and he's kind and generous and is humble too. After everything he's contributed to the, American movie canon, he's still such a lovely, humble guy.
Well, he actually says one of my favorite lines in the movie. He says, though you may be new to the ways of the ways of the enemy are not new, which is what you were
Mm.
right. But I was like, wow, we know spiritual warfare is real. We know the devil is real, yet we're so hesitant to talk about that. Why do you think we are kind of like, I don't want to go there?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with this pastor, Tim Keller, who's a Presbyterian pastor that passed away, I think 2 years ago.
Love to.
And Tim was great. He's a good friend. And in one of his sermons, he says, people have no problem saying they believe in God and they believe in a good, benevolent God who loves us. But people are really shy about saying they believe in Satan, as if that suddenly you're a kook, right? If you believe in Satan, God's fine. But Jesus talks about Satan quite a bit. I mean, when Jesus goes out, before he goes out to start preaching, he's tempted by Satan, right, in the desert. So it's a very real phenomenon. Um, and there's many people who have seen it for themselves. All these exorcists, I think, in certain countries, you see it a lot, and I think so. It's I understand people's reluctance. It seems a little kooky, and it's always been portrayed in such a Hollywood fashion. But really, I feel like, listen, Satan's already lost, right? It is finished. It's done. He's vanished, but he's still operating in the world and doing what sort of damage he can. And I almost feel like we're at a time right now where you just feel in the air there's a lot of aggression, there's a lot of violence, the wars, the hatred that is no longer hiding itself, but on the surface, and people feel free to express hatred for each other. There's something there. There's something we're going through right now, I believe, in life. And so I think it's important for all of us. You don't have to be looking for Satan around every corner, but I think it's important to, put on the full armor of God in order to sanctify yourself and to protect yourself from some of these things, these slings and arrows that are going to head your way. And you do it knowing that, you know, you've got all of heaven behind you, supporting you. So, it's fine. But I think that it's not bad to have an awareness of what things in life are sent your way to tempt you, to knock you off track. And listen, and I wouldn't say this is satanic. Like, you have to separate out, like, I'm on social media too much.
Mhm.
It distracts me from setting my mind on the things of God as opposed to things of the world.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that social media is satanic, but there are a lot of things that are in the world that can distract us from our personal sanctification and for being of service to others. So, and I think Satan uses whatever he can to um, compound that. So
Mm.
it's good to just have an awareness. C.S. Lewis wrote that great book, Screw Tape Letters,
Mhm.
and it was really about this junior tempter who's trying to get his patient to fall away from God, his human, right? And a lot of the ways he was doing it were just small, little annoying things.
Mhm.
So, like, don't let your patient look at this beautiful piece of art for too long, because he'll recognize the beauty in it, and then he'll find God through the beauty. So distract him from sitting in an art gallery. Like, it was a really interesting take on it. And so I think we have to just be vigilant in continuing to turn our eyes to God.
I love how in Screw Tape Letters they talk about how we're so distracted by comfort too. And that's something
Oh
we
yeah.
have in Western culture is this God of comfort.
Yeah, and people will make you feel silly, and there's probably Christians who attribute everything to Satan when it's really just human failing, right? It's just our fallen nature. But it's good to have an awareness.
What conversations do you hope this movie sparks among skeptics, families, churches about the nature of evil and deliverance and really the power of prayer?
Yeah, prayer is super important, and especially communal prayer. Especially if you're married, I think that that's really important to pray for your marriage, pray for your kids, starting with protecting your family unit, and then those prayers go out to your extended family, your neighbors, your community, and the world, right? Um, that is very, very, very important, and that's just a great weapon that we have. And then, of course, as Catholics, we have the sacraments, which are also great weapons of protection and sanctification and to help us grow in our walk.
Mhm.
Um, I hope that the movie sort of shakes people up a little bit and brings them back to an awareness that there is a battle. As Paul said, this is not about flesh and blood. It's about principalities and powers. That's what we're fighting against. So we have to, it's a good reminder. And I think just like when The Exorcist first came out, I think a lot of people were like, whoa, I need to get back to church. I need to, you know, um, rethink my spiritual walk. So I hope that it strikes a few people that way, because I think it has a grittiness and a realness to it that is very down to earth and makes it very relatable.